Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm Rather Shorty. Today I'm going to review something I never thought I'd review. It's a Marvel Swimsuit special. There's a few reasons why I never thought I'd review it. Number one, I never thought I'd ever bother reading it. But I was vaguely curious about what was going to be in there, and then I was quite surprised by what was in there, including the fact that it actually has a story, which is a hell of a surprise. Now, for some people, if you've never read a Marvel Swimsuit special or perused one, you might be unsurprised at all that there's also a story involved in it, but I have read a few of these back in the day. When I say back in the day, I was 12. And I think that's probably the kind of ideal age for this kind of thing. Because don't get me wrong, there is absolutely no issue I'm going to have with people wanting to look at pictures of pretty people. Like, I am absolutely not here to yuck anyone's yum. But even as a teenager, late teenager, shall we say, I was very much aware that the grand scheme of things in Marvel comic books, so many of the characters who led teams, who had their own solo series, that had issues that had comics from for more issues than anything else, the casting on promotion materials that got made into movies, you'd see on t-shirts, were very much cishet white guys. And then when you get the Swimsuit special, the vast majority of people in there were not. And it always just felt a little bit icky before I had the right words to describe why it was odd. And that male gaze is still kind of prevalent in this one, but they temper it quite nicely. And I'm trying my best not to get too much hung up on the idea of the male gaze, because I am one. A male, I mean, not the gaze. And I'm not entirely sure I'm the best person to say exactly the how well they've handled that. I'm interested to, if anyone has some comments on them, please feel free to shout out on it, because I only have my own opinions on this kind of thing. I'm mostly trying to talk about whether or not it's worthwhile, whether or not it's a good comic book, whether or not I should spend some time and money on it. And I will say, yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun. More fun than I expected. For a start, as I said, it has a story. And in the first couple of pages, this story calls out AI slop in advertising and corporations greenwashing their image to appeal to more people. And don't get me wrong, I know that Marvel is, part of a large corporation that probably likes the idea of people not thinking they're an evil corporation, so doing something like this will help them, their public image at least, in certain ways. Don't get me wrong, not the most evil corporation out there, but still, they do stuff. But I don't mind them calling it out. I'm not going to, say they shouldn't do it and should absolutely just be like, no, we're terrible people, let's only talk about that. Because if you do call it out, it kind of gives people at least a bit of permission to be aware of this kind of story, this kind of thing, and call it out themselves as well. And mostly what they're doing is, in the story, putting out their own in-universe Swimsuit special, because an evil corporation is using AI to generate stuff, which is very, very much done for titillation and designed to turn families off of superheroes with the idea that, no, they're supposed to be role models for children, but here they are flouncing around, exposing too much flesh and weirdly having 6 fingers on each hand. So they were down with superheroes. So it becomes this case of, let's reclaim this power. If we're going to have our bodies on display, let's control how we do that. And I like it. It means it's kind of body positive. It's a feminist message, which I agree with. I'm not saying all feminists agree with it, or all people would agree with it either way, or even anyone would see it as a feminist message, but I do like the idea of people taking control of their bodies, and I also like the fact that it is certainly more weighted for even-handed distribution of masculine and feminine forms, and not always done purely for titillation. There are some which kind of lean into that, because that's exactly what this is doing. Even when they're doing it in a slightly more family-friendly way, this is still going to be part of it. But there's also just quite nice family shots. There's a really wonderful bit of the Hulk in his purple pants about to dive bomb a swimming hole, and the people in the pool looking kind of nervous. But then you've also got an awful lot of shots of Wade Wilson, very much inches away from exposing himself, which is actually, if that's what you're into, again, I'm not here to rain on anyone's parade. It also manages to be delightful and funny at times, which did surprise me. The aforementioned Hulk thing was quite a nice bit, but my absolute favourite moment of it is just a really cool She-Hulk gag, and it's a visual gag, and she turns up a couple of times in it because, yes, she is a very well-known, very well-proportioned femme character within the Marvel Universe, so putting her in a bikini or a one-piece or two-piece, anything like that, it's obviously going to be some people's go-to thing. But my favourite one is her in a swimming pool on a lilo. And I don't mean a lilo, I mean 3, because she's too big. So they have to gaffer tape 3 lilos together for her to lay on. And I find it just one of those kind of odd little subtle things. I had somebody else in the shop recently, and they were flicking through it. They didn't even notice that gag. I spotted it, and I thought, yeah, this is actually the kind of thing I like about what they're doing here. They're understanding that the people who are reading it might not be doing the same reason people did back in my day, but there's still some fun to be had with it, including the idea that, like, once they finally put it all out, it turns out hardly anyone cares anymore, because swimsuit specials are just not a thing anymore. Very self-aware, very entertaining, and full of some quite gorgeous bits of artwork. So yeah, try it, have a laugh with it, don't take it too seriously, and I think you might have some fun with it. That's just me today, though. Until I see you all again, look after yourself, everyone, stay safe. Bye!